In India, they're gearing up for phase 3 out of 7 in a general election lasting 6 weeks. France 24's Leela Jacinto is here. Leela, one of the issues coming up to phase 3 is this petition that was lodged last week before the Supreme Court, a petition that was rejected to review the way electronic voting goes.
Yes, this ruling came on the second phase, the day more than 80 constituencies went to the polls. This goes to show that, in the thick of an election, there are still anxieties about this. Basically, the thing with electronic voting in India is that Indian national elections are 100% electronic, which means nearly 970 million voters have to use what's called the EVM, or the electronic voting machine, to cast their ballot. And, if you look at this globally, Francois, there is much debate globally on electronic voting. There's a UN body, it's called, that looks into these issues. It's called the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance. And they have actually they've mapped how many countries use electronic voting. We have this graphic here that shows how many countries are now using this. So these countries in green, 21%, mind you, they are not using it 100% and not for national elections. So, for instance, France does not offer electronic voting in national elections. And then you have some countries in pink like Germany, Norway, Finland that tried it on a small scale and then banned it. Now, the Indian Election Commission recommends it. And in the Indian context, it argues it makes sense. One is the massive scale of it, and two, in the past, especially in the remote areas, there was ballot capturing and security issues. So the Election Commission says that it is safer and more efficient. But at the heart of this issue is not whether to use electronic voting, it's how to use it. And, the devil is in the details in this case.
Oh, well, talk to us about the devil then.
Okay. Well, the devil has two acronyms.
Okay.
One is EVM, electronic voting machines. These are basically sort of ballots that is a machine on which voters can make their choice. The heart of the matter is this other unit, which is called the VVPAT, and everybody knows it in India. It stands for Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail. So basically, when you put your choice, this unit generates a paper slip, which is visible on a tiny window for 7 seconds, around 7 seconds, after which the vote goes into the sealed box. Now, the NGO of academics, mostly working on electoral reforms, who filed this complaint at the Supreme Court, pleaded that basically voters get a paper slip so they can verify their choice before it goes into the ballot box. And they also asked for certain disincentives because people get fined if they raise a complaint and it's not met. These were the things that the Supreme Court rejected on April 26. And in its ruling, it says that, there is this culture of blind distrust of electronic voting must end. And India needs to have a culture of trust when it comes to electronic voting. But trust is the heart of the issue here.
This issue of trust is important because there are countries where there's ballot stuffing when it's paper and countries where there's ballot stuffing when it's electronic. So how do you define that trust?
I mean, this has been actually identified as the UN body, which is, something that really needs to be worked on. I mean, at the heart of the anxiety is the fact that technology can be manipulated in the ruling party's favor, right? So there are technical fixes for it. And India is actually pretty good on that. Since 2013, the Supreme Court has been making all sorts of rulings and recommendations which have been implemented. But when it comes to trust, India is doing very badly. And the opinion polls are showing that. Now, there's a pre-election poll that's brought out. It's called the Lokniti poll. Everybody looks out for it. And they found that this year there's a complete decline in trust. And the figures are actually pretty alarming. So they found a drop in the trust in the Indian Election Commission compared to the previous election 5 years ago. And also when it comes to EVMs, a bigger decline. Nearly half the respondents said that they had some or a lot of apprehensions that the system can be jiggered in the ruling party's favor. So, I mean, what this goes to show is, there is distrust. This is also seized by the opposition and the ruling party. So shortly after the Supreme Court verdict, for instance, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the campaign trail said that the ruling was a tight slap to the opposition Congress party. The Congress, of course, shot back and with a spanking jibe, and it pointed out that it was not a litigant to this. It was an NGO that filed this complaint. And on social media, the level of anxiety is incredible. You know, opposition supporters voicing their disquiet over the system. They are met with a backlash by ruling party supporters. I mean, what this goes to show is basically two things: distrust. But two, and this is on a more positive note, is that Indians care deeply about democracy. They care about how the election is conducted. They expect a free and fair conduct of the election. And if they feel this doesn't happen, they make a big stink about it.
Right, because after 2 rounds, there's questions over whether or not voter turnout is up or down.
Exactly. So, you know, I mean, the sort of narrative that the government gives, which is, of course, in a country where, you know, press freedom is declining, one can never be quite sure if the official narrative is the real thing. You know, so, I mean, so there are certainly people charged about the elections and enthusiastic about the elections, but there was a drop in voter turnout in the first 2 phases. You know, we've still got a lot more to go.
All right, June 4th is when we'll have more answers.
Electronically.
Leela Jacinto, many thanks for that.